This should not be making noises like this. We're venting a whole bunch of air out of here. So what these are, they're little valves that will let air out but not water. And I think the main issue we have is this loop here was an add-on loop which heats the office, and this thing gets airlocked regularly. Like right now, we've got an airlock because we have no hot water returning to here. Our pressure's down, and then there's the hot water out, and it feels warm here. But if I were to go and see where it enters that office, coming out of the boiler room down to here and into the baseboard heaters, this is not hot. Being as I knew there'd be continual little things I need to do with this system, I actually have a collection of these little air valves in here. 1/8" pipe thread. So what we have up there, there's like a little air bleeder you can like loosen off. I'm gonna take that out and put this in its place. That way I won't have to like be climbing up there, because if I climb up, let the air out, it'll also let out some water. This thing will start running again. The one thing is if I put one of those automatic ones, we basically have to get this straight up and down. Can't really mount it on an angle. So I'm gonna take a couple of zip ties, and I'm gonna crank this thing, get it as close to straight up and down as we can, and then we'll swap this out. Don't need to be much more than hand tight. Okay. Alright, it's pretty much straight up and down. I like it. Okay, alright, let's see that. Yes. So that thing is hissing, which is good. It's letting a lot of air out. Fire up the pump. I think that is going to make a huge difference for us. This should call for an opening. Yeah. And I can hear a lot of air coming out of there. Every time I shut it down and start it up again, I usually hear all that water, but then I usually let it run for an hour or two and it just quiets right out. So one nice thing with a boiler heat system is that it's silent, you know, for filming and stuff like that. And also for dust. This system's fantastic for dust because we're not blowing any air around, you know. Make sure I got everything opened up properly. Open. Yes. It should be warming up over here. Yep, I can feel the warm here, and then this is our return, so this will take a while to heat up, but we are definitely doing it. Oh, you can just see all the dirt in these pipes. All right, good progress on the boiler. I had a feeling I was gonna wake up to this because every several days we get that airlock, and I was waiting until the next one before I put that little bleeder valve in. Also, one thing I did yesterday, ultralight engine wiring diagram, don't want to lose that. Yesterday, while I was waiting for some wood filler to dry, I went out to the gate and I thought, okay, we got to figure this out. What was happening is that it wouldn't close, and just developed this problem. What I was actually doing is I was going out there, turning the power off, manually, like there's a motor and then it goes to a gearbox via belt. I would manually spin the wheel on the gearbox, thus closing the thing. But then I thought, you know what? I got this right angle drive adapter thing, and I just took a 3/8 socket adapter and whatever size, maybe a 7/8 socket, put some hockey tape on it, and then I can push this against the belt. This thing worked fantastic. So most nights I would go out there, turn the power off, close the gate, and then whenever we wanted to leave, I would just turn it back on. I've got a main disconnect in the shop here, so it's not that big of a deal, but what I decided to do, I thought, you know what? I don't like being bested by these problems. And I used to install overhead doors at airports, and so I know how these operators work. That's the operator that we have. I had this, and I basically studied this. I pored over it the other night, trying to think about what it could be. And then, yesterday, I realized on the control panel, here's like a picture of the control panel. These are all the main terminal inputs and status LED lights, troubleshooting LEDs. Game changer. Oh my goodness, that is so amazing. I noticed that D19 kept going on and off. And if we look at D19 soft open, every 5 seconds, this little LED D19 would blink, and then it'd turn off. And then it would blink, and then it would turn off. On when open switch is activated. So something was telling the operator to open over and over and over again. Soft open wiring diagram. And I saw going into the number 5, which is the open terminal, there was 4 wires. I pulled all 4 wires out, and that initiated the closing timer, and all of a sudden the gate just closed, which it had not done in weeks. And then one by one, I started plugging those wires back in. And the first one that I tried gave an open signal. So what we have, the ways to access, is there's like a master button. There is the garage door opener, the radio receiver. There's a keypad, and there's a driveway sensor in the driveway, so that when we're leaving, we could just like click that and then go. With that first wire giving the open signal, I thought, okay, let me tape this up, and I put the other 3 back in there. And I waited. And I waited. And the gate was staying closed, which is what it's supposed to do. And then I went and I tried the radio receiver, gate opened, timer, 10 seconds, gate closed. Went out, tried the keypad, open, closed. Then I came and tried the open button, and that worked as well. So what happened somehow, and this is the part I'm not entirely sure of, is that when we've got that sensor under the asphalt, I believe it is a metallic sensor. And the reason I say that, my boots, these metal work boots, big old steel toes, steel shank, those will set that sensor off when I'm walking down the driveway. But running shoes don't. So that makes me think that it's not my weight. I'm not sure, but whatever it is, when the ground freezes, you know, there's expansion, contraction, I don't know what happened, but something happened where the sensor is saying, there's a vehicle here, ready to leave, let's go. Disconnected that wire, everything was working perfectly. Such a simple little thing. And that's one of my favorite things with troubleshooting, is that it will all make sense. And if you learn to follow the logic of how things work, whether it's electricity, right? Like something's telling this to do this, what is that? Okay, eliminate the problems and then start putting potential problems back. Same thing with the boiler system. I mean, there's one problem I had is that there's this main mixing valve and the floor loops weren't working. And what this mixing valve does, it's a thermocouple controlled flow valve. And so if it senses that the certain temperature is high enough, it will actually close. But I think what was happening is that there's just so much heat from that boiler, and it was always reading up there at about like 130, 140 degrees, even with no water flowing. And I thought it was another pump that was gone. And I took this boiler cap off, cracked it open, and it was seized, and I jammed it, and I started tightening it up. And then as soon as I started tightening it up, I could hear water flowing again. I've probably paid about 29 hours to a professional plumber. And they didn't even figure that out. Troubleshooting sometimes can be a royal pain in the butt, but the more you do it, the better you get. And it's just, I got good practice at it working at airports, doing airport baggage conveyors. The system's not running. Okay, logically, is it powered on? Okay, are there any emergency stops pressed? I one time had to drive from Strathmore to Edmonton, Alberta. It was rodeo weekend. I got a call about 7 o'clock at night because I was on call. Jumped on my motorbike, rode up there, and a lady, one of the ticket agents, had pressed the emergency stop button. And I got there and I said, why isn't this thing running? And she goes, oh, I just pushed that button and it didn't work. The duty manager of the airport didn't even ask that question. Anyways, they paid for it and I got like overtime, but it all makes sense. And you got to start at the most simple things. Okay, first check this, check this, check this, check this. And you can build on that. Now, obviously, the more complicated the system, the more complicated the problems can be. But for most stuff that you find, like this gate, it's just, the reason it's been bugging me so much is because I'm like, it's some stupid little thing that I just need to find. And that's all it is. It works perfectly now. Like, just better than it's ever worked. And that, my friends, is the joy of troubleshooting. All right, I gotta go to the post office.